when I was maybe 4 or 5 years old, at some point I had access to a piano. We didn't have one yet, but my mother realized that I kind of had an aptitude, so she got me into lessons. And the woman that taught me until I was 17 years old. So it was classical music background. She was almost like a second mother to me. And I was doing every musical thing that I could at school. Accompanying the choir, singing in a choir, playing in the jazz band, etc., all that stuff. And I started saying, I'm going to go to Juilliard, which I didn't do. I went to Berkeley. But, you know, as I got older, I went through college, got sort of what you'll call the backup degree, so that I could fall back on something. But then I decided, I'm not going to fall back before I get started. So I left my corporate job at Newsweek and I moved to Madrid to become a musician. I stayed there for 4 years. It was an incredible place. I played in rock bands, I played in Spanish bands, and later in jazz bands. And then when I came home, I decided to put myself through Berkeley. So this whole time I'd been working, doing a lot of jazz work, piano and vocals. I didn't really play guitar. I played a couple of chords, but not so well. And I continued with my jazz work, but when my father passed away, and this was a little over 20 years now, probably 23 years ago, I thought I should do something, really want to do something more meaningful. And I started floating the idea with people of becoming a cantor. And as I talked about it, I realized this feels right. And every time I say it to someone, it feels like the thing I want to do. So I started to pursue it. My first congregation was Temple Beth Shalom in Needham. I was there for 3 years on a part-time basis. And then there was a job opening here that someone told me about, and I thought, oh, well, I'm part-time in Needham, I'll check this out. And this is where I found my congregational home. So 20 years later, here I am.
My journey is very different. I never thought that I would be a professional musician. I knew I loved to sing. My parents liked to tell the story of how they went to get me up from a nap and I was standing up in my crib singing along to a Beethoven symphony that was playing in the other room. Bum, 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 ba-dum, bum, 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 bum. So I was not that kind of prodigy really, but that is the story they tell. I always sang in choruses in school. But I loved to read and I was good at writing. So when I got to college, I decided I wasn't going to be an English major because that wasn't practical. I was going to be a psychology major because that was much more practical. And as soon as I found out that it really wasn't much more practical than being an English major, I decided to be an English major. But I did choose the school that I went to, the University of Rochester, in part because I knew that I could take voice lessons at Eastman. So I was very fortunate. I studied 3 out of my 4 years in college at Eastman, and my junior year I got to study with a wonderful teacher who also happens to be a world-class opera singer, Renee Fleming.
Oh.
I thought that I was going to be an editor. But my Judaism was important to me, and singing was important to me. And when I found out from my mother that there was an opening for a soloist position at the temple where she was the educator at the time, I realized that it was a way of combining singing with Judaism in a way that had never occurred to me. So I auditioned, and that was my first Cantorial Soloist job.
Where else?
Oh, this was when she was working at Temple Beth David in Westwood. So this was back in the mid-'80s. And actually, I think I had had one soloist job before that. I spent 2 years working with UAHC, now the URJ, the Northeast region had some young adult High Holy Day services. And Rabbi Paul Menitoff, who was the chairperson at the time, recruited me for that. So that was my first soloist position. When we were originally hired, Lisa was hired as the Friday night soloist, and I was the Saturday morning soloist.
I came in and got more involved in sort of bringing musical opportunities to the congregation. So with the previous rabbi, we did a lot of music together. And then when Rabbi Rachel came, she had specific ideas about forming a band. And so I was the person that sort of took over that project of forming a tefillah band. And so now Sharon and I both co-lead Friday night and Saturday morning services, as well as festivals. In the past, maybe 5 years, I'm not sure, we've done some chaplaincy work. We got some chaplaincy training. And one of the things that's really meaningful to me is to be able to bring a musical element to our Shiva gatherings. Because that's a moment when at least I really feel like I'm of service. I'm sure we all do. Sharon focuses a lot on teaching, on different aspects of teaching, and I think that we really complement each other in that we have different skills. And I really respect the time and the how invested you are in teaching your students. Teaching is not exactly my forte, so we really sort of fit together like a puzzle.
Yeah. That's absolutely true. And coming from a family of educators, teaching was something that I really came almost by default to. Since I don't have any formal education background, I've learned on the job, but I have been teaching in the religious school as a music teacher right along since my first year-round soloist position in Hingham. But I do enjoy that, and I love working with the students and having a very different rapport with them one-on-one than I would in a classroom.
Yeah, we went to a conference in Cincinnati. We were walking up a hill, coming back to the conference from an ice cream shop.
Which is interesting because I remember walking down the hill toward the ice cream shop.
Okay. And I think that you said something to me. In talking, we realized that we had known each other since we were maybe 8 or 9 years old. We were in the same cabin together at Camp Natticook, which was an unaffiliated Jewish summer camp in New Hampshire.
Yeah. My husband actually went to that camp as well. So when I told him that I had been hired for the job, for the interim position, but I was sharing it with a woman named Lisa Marcus, he said, "Lisa Marcus?" And I said, "Oh, no, not that Lisa Marcus." But it turned out it was that Lisa Marcus.
And
I had served other congregations, and I had been happy at other congregations and got along well with the people, with the lay people and the rabbis, but they weren't my home. We joined this congregation, I don't even know what year it was, but when my kids were young and ready to start religious school, which is fairly typical. And this really was my congregational home. We had friends here. We had connections. Our kids felt at home here. So working here, where my home is, meant that I didn't have the split between the place that was my professional home and the place that was the home of my heart and the home of my family. And I feel incredibly privileged that I've been able to do that now for 20 years.
I've always felt very strongly that I want everyone who walks through these doors to feel like they belong. Not just that they're welcome, but that they belong here, and that we're happy to have them here. For some people, that's a complicated issue. And that's always been my focus, especially since when I went to interview at Cantorial School to become a cantor, they made me feel unwelcome because I was in an interfaith marriage. So I didn't go to Cantorial School. And that sort of prompted me to have this personal mission that everyone should feel welcomed and belonging. Over the years, this connections kept growing and growing, and I did get to a point where I said, this isn't just where I work, this really is my congregation. This is my community. If something were to happen to me, I would turn to this rabbi and this community. That's a really unusual and special thing, to be working in a place where you have that connection. It's something that I had never imagined I'd be doing, but it's wonderful.
And I think in terms of why I still do it and why I still love what I do, part of it is that I think we're really lucky in the cohesiveness that we have here. And in terms of why I do what I do, I love being able to look out at people and engage them. You know, whether it's as a whole or whether it's one-on-one, making eye contact briefly. I enjoy being able to spread the warmth and bring people in to be a shlichat tzibur to the best of my ability, to be an emissary for the community.
It's also extremely meaningful to me when people come up to me and say, your music really touched me. It went straight to my heart. Or when I look out at the congregation, sometimes I see people dancing, sometimes I see people smiling, sometimes I see people crying. All of those things are part of the experience. And that tells me that the music is important because it cuts through all of the intellectual parts of praying and goes straight to the heart.
Each one of us must start to